quality of food being sold at the country spaza shops and in our townships is back in the spotlight. And this follows the deaths of those 5 children in Naledi, Soweto. They're believed to have consumed snacks allegedly bought at a local spaza shop. Let's talk about legislation and enforcement around food quality and how consumers are protected. We're joined by the head of complaints and investigations at the National Consumer Commission. This is Prudence Moilwa. Prudence, good morning. Thank you so much for being available to us. Just straight out of the gate, when you saw this story and you heard the allegation that could potentially have led to these children having died, what is the first thing that the NCC is required to do?
Yes, thank you very much. The National Consumer Commission, as we all know, is responsible to ensure safety in the markets. Obviously, when we heard the story, the first thing that came to mind was that there is a concern. There is a concern about the quality of products that are sold in the market. Obviously, as you might be aware, we have embarked on national inspections to ensure that food in the country is safe. So we're working with local authorities in Gauteng, obviously, to ensure that we get to the bottom of what caused this incident.
I want to come back to just the broader mandate in respect of previous cases, but in this specific case, you say you're working with various role players. Just take us into that story. Exactly what are you doing? Sort of what machinery has now been kicked into action?
Yes, the Gauteng province actually has established a forum, a food safety forum that is made up of the environmental health practitioners and all the police and all the local authorities, actually. The whole campaign, I think it started last month when we were in Tembisa, where in the MEC for Economic Development, led the inspection into various shops. So that very same forum will be working on this. Actually, I started working on this. Tests have already been taken by the environmental health practitioners. And also, I think they're meeting now around 10 o'clock with other inspectors to make sure that they map a way forward around the inspections in the area.
So there are a team of inspectors then whose job it is to go into communities to check things, I imagine like expiration date. Just give us a sense of what their work physically entails in our communities.
Yes, the inspections by and large, especially the inspections that we are involved in, we would go into the store and things that are visibly untoward would then be removed, obviously working with the police in terms of the Health Act as well as the environmental health practitioners. So by and large, what we then do is we get into the establishment, and the first thing that we do is check, obviously, like you say, the sell-by dates as well as the expiry date on the products. But also, as you can imagine, some goods that are not necessarily safe cannot be visibly seen. And that is why on this particular one, we also insist on ensuring that paperwork is kept by people who sell food. And also, as you may be aware, it's a requirement by law for anybody who sells food to have the certificate of acceptability in order to make sure that the environment and also that they are following the various prescripts of law to ensure that the goods that are sold are safe. Obviously, we have not been able to get to each and every place, and I think that is why we're picking up that in certain areas, there still are things like this that occur. But like you may be aware, it's still early days. We really do not know what the cause of this incident is. And we will be working, obviously, with the local authorities in Gauteng to get to the bottom of this. Tests have already been taken now, and we're waiting for those tests to come back to inform us exactly what transpired with the chips that allegedly the children have eaten. So it's quite a complicated...
If I can, I think that's... I want to get to 2 issues. Let's start with the tests that have been taken. So just talk to us about how you narrowed down which brands or brand needed to be tested. Just start off at the beginning of how it led to these tests and what's going to happen next.
Yeah, the environmental health practitioners on the ground, what happened is that they did interviews. Obviously, they interviewed the people concerned to find out just around the incident, to find out what they possibly would have consumed for this incident to take place. So it's quite an involved process wherein obviously the toxicology reports that still need to come out in terms of the police doing their work in this type of incident, but also the environmental health practitioners having to then sample the product that has been identified as the one that has been consumed by the children. So all the tests are now being done, and we're waiting for those tests. It's quite an involved process, as you can imagine, because so far the possibility of these chips having been the cause of the incident has not been ruled out. And like we always say as the Commission, until we know for sure that in fact goods that are sold in the markets have been implicated or not implicated in the incident, we then would want for that to be strict. Luckily, in this incident, we have been reliably informed that the shop has been closed, so no further products will be sold from that particular establishment.
I just want to go back to, so you went to that particular spaza shop that was identified as the one where the children potentially had bought these snacks, narrowed it down based on what the family had said, that they potentially had eaten chips. When your team had got there, was the store still open and operational, which allowed you then to procure some of these samples?
Yeah, no, the shop, I think once it was pointed out, the community, obviously because of the uprising that then happened, the shop owner had to close the shop. So already the shop was closed, and as I said, all the authorities working around the issue, obviously we're going to close the shop, but because the community obviously raised concern as they should, the shop owner also closed the shop on their own because of the community.
Yeah. I guess what I'm getting to, Prudence, is you were able to go while it was still operational and procure those samples from the store that apparently sold them.
Yeah. The environmental health practitioners who belong to the municipality, by law, has jurisdiction over that area, is the one that took the samples and are the ones who will be providing us with the test results. Well, obviously, it's a multidisciplinary environment wherein each entity would have to then work together in that regard. As I said, the Gauteng Forum, Food Safety Forum, is taking the lead on this one, and we're working closely with them together with our inspectors.
So I guess we should be speaking to them as well to just get to that granular detail. As you say, this would they have then been the team that would have interviewed the parents or the family, gone to the shop itself, procured the samples, interviewed the owner? They would have conducted all of that?
Correct. Okay. As I said, the environmental health practitioners are leading this one through the Food Safety Forum of the province.
Okay, we'll try and get them on the program. But before I let you go, I want to talk about the fact that this is not the first time, Prudence, and you know this well through the work that you do, where there have been complaints in the community about contamination in food. I know that the NCC has done recalls before. You've issued notices, and the one I'm thinking about was a recall in October this year from with relation to the Top Score instant porridge, and we know that there were fatalities associated there. But when you think about the effectiveness of the work that you do together with some of the environmental health practitioners, how many stores have you shut down? How many problematic products have you found, especially in informal communities where there's a high risk in terms of food or food quality has been compromised? What has the work been so far? How effective are you, I guess, is the main question that I'm asking.
Yeah. The difficulty with working, especially on this kind of products, because the incident happens and then we get involved. And even with our inspections, it is also very challenging to try and test each and every product that is in the store. That is why, in terms of law, each and every establishment that sells food has to follow the regulation or the best food handling practices. And we are finding that in most instances, some of the certificates, I will tell you, in fact, with regard to the recent case, not the Top Score one, where on one of the matters that we are handling, where we find that even with the certificate of acceptability, we find that there are problems there. So there is a big challenge around the sale of food in the country. We're trying to get to the bottom of it by establishing multidisciplinary teams, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're losing the war, but we want to also appeal to suppliers out there, suppliers, established ones or big corporate ones, as well as even the small spaza shop ones, to say, please comply with the law. Obviously, with the limited resources that we have, even with multidisciplinary teams, we really need the goodwill of the suppliers as well to make sure that they
But
follow the
Prudence,
processes.
it's almost wishful thinking, right? So businesses want to operate. We've seen then, if this is happening and, the certificates themselves are problematic, people are cutting corners because they can cut corners, because there's nobody who's going to hold them accountable for cutting those corners. And we have the result where families are mourning children. These are, the most vulnerable in our society. How can we do better? If, as you say, we haven't lost the war, but it does sound like the problem's much bigger than you and all of these stakeholders.
Yeah, no, I think the observation is correct. And I think the criticism is also called for. I think part of the reason why the National Consumer Commission decided to go on this nationwide inspection drive is that we want to also galvanize the other stakeholders in the environment to start doing what they're supposed to be doing. In terms of the Health Act, environmental health practitioners are based in the municipalities so that they are able to inspect the food, obviously with limited resources. Like you say, it does look like we are overwhelmed, yes, and I think it's something that as regulators, we must then upfront, even with our strategies, try to beef up the work that we are currently doing. So as a commission, we want to have a national footprint wherein we get the environmental health practitioners, the police, as well as the local consumer affairs officers to put in the forefront the issue of food. And I think
I've got to leave it there, Prudence, only because we have run out of time, but I think that you've sufficiently put forward some of the issues and, as you say, accepting the criticism there. We look forward to seeing the outcome of these toxicology reports and for hopefully closure on this score for those families. Thanks for your time. Prudence Moilwa is the head of complaints and investigations at the National Consumer Commission. More news.